Hey everybody, it's Thursday.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Night Bite.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily. And we are so excited to be here with you this evening. It's been really an exciting last few weeks for us. And I guess I say weeks because Josh reminded me right before the show that we actually had this past Thursday off. So if you tuned in and we weren't actually here, sorry about that. But what we were doing is honestly packing for camping and all of that because we went on a pretty fun adventure. I think we've talked to a few guests in the past that have done some camping while fishing, camping on islands and all that kind of good stuff. But this was our first time camping
via boat.
Via boat is exactly what I was trying to say. Thank you so much. So, I mean, it's one thing to be able to pack up your whole car and go camping and then, you know, take everything with you that weekend. But when you have to load it all into the boat first, I would say it adds an extra challenge. It's not, it's not that ridiculous, right? But it did make me really conscious of what I was packing because it did have to all come with us and get carried in and out, so like twice.
Well, the funny thing about it is that, you know, I think most people that were going there to recreational camp probably would have had a little bit of easier time if it was just two people going out camping, right? But we have all of our Lakewood gear filled to the brim with tackle that always lives in the boat on top of all of the stuff that we had to bring. So it was, you know, the boat squatted a little bit. We lost a couple miles an hour on the plane, but that was okay. We made it out there. It was a great time. We love the Chippewa flowage. It's one of those places that really fits our style of fishing really well. There's all kinds.
It's 100 degrees.
Well, no, we did really. I think we did really well compared to a lot of people. You know, we even had some guides stop by and say hi to us while we were crappie fishing, just because they were like, "Hey, how's the bite going?" And we're like, "Ooh, here's a fish." And they're like, "Well, I guess you're doing okay." And they go somewhere else. But no, I thought we did okay considering it was so hot. But we did have to limit the time in the boat, right? You can't. It's hard to sit out there and just like boil when you're trying to fish. So
well, and so I guess with that, that left a little bit more time for us at camp because one of the things that we noticed is that when we were in camp, it was totally covered with trees, right? We were in the middle of a forested area. It was, I don't know, I'm pretty open in there. Like, I guess I can't call it, but the tree cover was very dense. And so the nice thing is there was a lot of shade and it was considerably cooler at camp. And so we were there with the Tyrees, Kyle and Sydney. So Wisconsin fishermen, shout out to him and them if you follow them.
Love them.
But so we were sitting there around what would have otherwise been a campfire. And Sydney, because there's a channel right by this island that we were camping on, and she looks down the channel and she goes, "Guys, what is swimming in the channel? Like what's in the water?" And we all turn and look, and would you believe it was a bear? And yeah, so I mean, I think people saw our post early this week, and that was pretty exciting to see it come to the island. I guess none of us were scared for whatever reason. Maybe we should have been. But the crazy thing is it came right down the trail, right as close as the bathroom, the latrine, the pit toilet, whatever you call that thing out there. And sometimes that's a pretty far away from camp, but this time it was actually not that far from camp. And so, you know, we did have to kind of scare it off. And I don't want to make us sound like it was more of a story than it was, right? It didn't take all that much to scare it off. We just waved our arms and yelled a few times. It just turned around and walked away. It wasn't scared. It wasn't freaked out. It was just clearly not going to stay in that area. So we had one more night that we stayed there at the island. And so with that, we were able to fish those off hours. And so when we did find fish, it was, you know, that dusk time by the bogs, because those fish, they always hang out there. There's always bait fish for them to eat. But otherwise, going into the daytime and coming out, where we were finding fish is the flats. They weren't on the deep structure. They weren't on, I don't know, the places that I thought to look. And we found these fish just out roaming the flats.
Well, and I think the important part to note that maybe I didn't bring up out loud to you, but I've noted it in my head. I think that an important piece of structure that you have to consider, especially this time of year, is the thermocline. And those fish, the thermocline was at about 15 feet. and that's where the fish were sitting. It was 14 or 15 feet deep. There'd be a couple that were up in 12, and there'd be some a little deeper, but that little bar was like the majority of the fish. And so I really think that they were like sitting to the bottom because, it was bright out, and they were just hanging out in the most temperate water that they could. It wasn't super cold and low oxygen. It wasn't like super hot surface water. They're just like chilling, eating little bug guys. So yeah, it was a fun time. It was cool to see all the fish out there just swimming around, and we caught a few.
And we're also interested in what your water temperatures are, where you're at, or any of those things, because it is summer and water temperatures are hot, even up by us in the north. So if you're south of us, let us know where your water's at, because that makes a big difference in fishing. So can't wait to hear some of those reports. And otherwise, we have got more fishing to talk about with our guest here tonight. So let's bring him in. Josh, thanks so much for being here tonight. And with Reck-n-Racks. So yeah, thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor.
So we got to meet you guys over actually at the St. Croix, what do they call it? A customer appreciation event. That was just a few weeks, a month ago now. This summer is like flown by. It wasn't that long ago. But that was really fun to meet you there. We were there with Euro Tackle, and so our booths happened to be like right next to each other. But I guess before we get too far into this conversation, can you maybe introduce yourself and tell us what you guys had there?
Yeah, so my name is Josh Reck-n-Racks. If you guys aren't familiar with me, owner and operator of Reck-n-Rack. But yeah, it was the first time being or attending that show at St. Croix up in Park Falls. We actually, my wife and my daughter, and then we brought my mom and my dad up. We made a little extended stay out of it. So I know the show was on Saturday. We drove up after work on Tuesday, and we stayed up, I think that was Butternut Lake up there. And so we found a little lodge and we did some fishing while we were up there. But yeah, I guess I'm trying to think. We didn't have a ton of action in terms of fishing, but did have a follow-up on a muskie, which is always exciting, even though you don't catch one, because everyone knows if you're in that realm, it's a fish of 10,000 casts. But the show being on Saturday, set up the booth right next to you guys. We were displaying our bump boards, net mates. We have a live scope pole, which is new to us this year. And then we have tackle storage organization for your tackle boxes. We really started out and focused on the muskie side. That's where most of my passion is for fishing, but I still love to just get out and fish. It doesn't matter what we're fishing for, as long as we're on the water. It's always a blast for me. So yeah, being a part of that show, saw a lot of people, talked to a lot of people, a lot of rods there. So hopefully people were able to get there and get their hands on whatever they're looking for. Great deals. So it was fun.
It was fun. And actually, I appreciate hearing what you guys were talking about, because I think I bumped into you at other shows and expos, and I'm not sure if we stopped and said hello quite as much as this expo, right? But I did always kind of think of you guys as like a muskie company, but you are really so much more than that. And so I think that's evident, like, your love for muskies, but you fish for whatever is biting, And so I think that's kind of fun, that you kind of have products for people across the board.
Yeah, I know I was just sharing with you guys earlier, right before we went live here, but even though muskies are the highest predator in the water system there, they're also the most delicate. So as you were saying just before you guys brought me into here, that you're wondering about water temps. So this last Sunday I was out on the water, but we made it a boat day. But even still, check the water temp, just curious. We're about 83, 85 degrees down here in southeastern Wisconsin, so pretty high temps here, and haven't been fishing muskies really much this year. I've been really targeting the walleye, but yeah, I would say we focus on the muskie, and kind of where we started with this too is when I'm out on the water, my dad and I we tag team when we're out fishing. Hey Dad, what are you doing? Let's go out, type of thing. And so a lot of our fishing is spent together, and it really started, him and I were out fishing one time, and we've done a lot of casting in hopes we would catch this mysterious fish called a muskie. Never caught one up until that point in my life, but This was probably maybe 10 years ago. And at that time, we're out on my dad's boat and made a cast, had this follow up, and it caught me off guard because you sit there and you cast and you cast and you don't expect anything. This time we actually saw a fish coming in on a figure 8 and did a couple of swoops around the boat, and it nailed the bait. And then got my dad all jacked. He's, rifling for the net. Where's the net? And then we finally net the fish. So you got the excitement there. And then we're just pretty in awe. We actually caught one. We have one in the net here. The next step is to safely release this fish. Well, that was troublesome for us because couldn't find our jaw spreaders, couldn't find our hook cutters, couldn't find our pliers. And the worst part of it was I think it was my brother and my brother-in-law. They took out the boat the prior weekend, and every compartment we looked, we were pulling out empty beer cans. So yeah, couldn't find anything. Long story short, the fish ended up dying on us. Had every single hook in its mouth, and we weren't prepared. So that was a very good lesson for us, and that's what really started Reck-n-Rack. And we started out with the tool holder, something that's very easy, convenient. You attach to the boat, have a set location where you put your essentials in terms of jaw spreaders, your pliers, your hook cutters. So that was really the start of it. And then,
can you bring up a picture of that?
What?
Sorry to put Josh on the spot.
Yeah.
Okay, but I really love your story about how it's great to have all of your tools right at hand because, like you're saying, I think so many people have experienced that situation where, they've caught a fish, they've been unprepared, they've, oh yeah, there you go. And so you can put all of your little tools right in there.
Yeah. And then we wanted to make it because a lot of boats nowadays, they have an integrated track system. So there's from Lunds to, trying to think here, Crestliner, Ranger boats. We try and provide it convenient where you can just attach it to those brackets so you don't have to drill in your boat. But some of the older style boats prior to that, you don't have that luxury. Some people, you can still install aftermarket product and such as like a Trax Tech. We've had some success where 3M adhesive double-sided tape, you can pluck that right on there and it'll stick to a point depending on what you're storing on there because it's going to hold only so much weight. But otherwise, some people, you have the luxury of drilling into it if you have no fear. So, but yeah, we started with that. And then that's when we really got a really good taste for muskie fishing after that first fish because you get that adrenaline, you want to go out and you always think today is the day you're going to beat your personal best or get that 50-incher. So, invested in a bump board. And at that time, I think I didn't have it very long. And the sticker on mine started peeling and deteriorating. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, we got this lure rack. I've shown some success there by selling it on Facebook, getting some interest. And then there's got to be another way of maybe making something a little bit better. So I got in touch with a plastic distributor, showed them what I was dealing with, what I was working with, how it uses, the intent. And then they introduced me to this high density plastic. They call it color core. There's a lot of different colors out on the market, but we stick to two main colors. It's white, black, white, where the white's exposed on the shell. And then the inside is the black. So when you engrave it with the machine, it's going to pop that other color. And then you got the reverse effect where it's black, white, black. So that's how we started with the bump boards, is that I was like, maybe there's something better. The vendor showed me something different. And then we started getting into CNC machining. So you have no stickers. It's all engraved into the board. And it should add an additional layer of precision too. And then I think once we had those two products, we entered our first expo, which was the Wisconsin Muskie Expo up in Wausau. Mm-hmm. And I think that was already 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know, time's flying, but we did that show and we talked to a lot of people, met a lot of great people, and got a great exposure, great feedback. And people learned, hey, you're dealing with plastic. That's when people are like, all right, can you build a tackle box? can you do this? Can you do that? And that's really everything that we've done so far is really just the voice of the customer and listening to the needs and the wants out there in the market. And then how do you make it is usually the challenge. All right, you got the idea, anyone can come up with the idea, and now how you execute that idea. So we carry a bunch of stuff that's not even on our website, because we do, I would call it essentially like private label. We do stuff with Catfishing World, like SmackDown. I think it's SmackDown rod holders. We'll make bait boards where people make their chum for catfishing. But here on our website, we tailor to stuff that we offer to our dealers that are outside the private labeling world. So we really wanted to focus on and keep to our true core of organization and storage for the boat. So that's what you'll mainly see on our website, is around that category. But we haven't dived into the bait making world, as there's no need, because there's plenty of bait makers making great baits that we don't need another bait maker entering the market. So we felt there's a need for more storage and organization for your boat to make a great, anytime you go out on the boat and have your boat organized and you don't get a hook in the finger, or you enter the boat the way, and you leave the same way, is always a great experience. So.
Well, and I love hearing you talk about how, it's all about the customer and their experience and, their needs and all of that. But I think to some extent, this goes right back to your original point that maybe that's actually about the fish, and caring for it and that release of the fish. We started with the tools, having the tools at hand so you can, spread over the mouth, get that hook out, safe for the fish, safe for you and your hands and all of that. But then even, you moved on to the bump board. And that reminds me so much, maybe not so much in the musky world yet, I guess I don't know, but so many fishing tournaments are going, online and, taking the length and having an approved bump board kind of thing. And so what your bump board offers, fulfills all those qualities. And so that's one of those things. So for, I guess, your own personal self, if you want to take that length measurement, that's a perfect bump board, but then it's also good for tournaments, for all these different things. So getting that fish back to the water, I mean, that's the ultimate goal. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, especially in sport fishing, right? You want to keep the sport alive. I know there's a lot of energy and activity going on, and there's a lot of club fisheries out there trying to collect money in terms of keeping the stocking programs alive, because it's kind of interesting. You spend all this money in the stockery of the fishery, and I don't have the numbers, but I think you'd be kind of shocked if you stock 10,000 fingerlings, of how many of those would survive. The percentage is very low. And even the ones that do survive, especially like a true, if you want a true trophy muskie, and you're probably, 45, 50 plus inches, that fish could be 15, 20 years old. So it takes quite a bit of time, and you want to make sure that sport's there for someone else to fish. You get your pictures, you release the fish, and it goes down to, people won't look at the bump board, but when you get more technical about the bump board and the material, there's antimicrobial shell to it. So, there's a slime to that fish. That slime is critical to the existence of that fish. And anytime you wipe or smear that slime off, it's going to expose it to bacteria that's going to potentially break that fish down and maybe not survive. So just little stuff like that is going to help and be critical to the existence and keep the sport alive for everyone else.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I guess maybe on the same terms of, being careful of that slime, Josh pulled up the net mate. And so to have like a good net to be ready to go to dare I say, wrangle that fish when you get it all the way to the boat. But I think why I say that is because, sometimes you get a fish and it just, is lazily comes on in. I don't know, but not normally with muskie. They're normally like whipping around or lashing around, right? And so you got to have a good net person, right? And to get it in there, because you don't want to be like trying to grab it, dropping it on your carpet of the boat and all those kinds of crazy things.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially with the nets you guys use for crappie and panfish are on a definitely smaller scale of the muskie side, because that yoke, that net, that bag is so much larger and awkward, and it's difficult to find space to store that. And especially when you got a fish, to conveniently make sure you have the fish in the water, but yet keep the pole or the handle of the net in the boat without losing the fish. So it's always been kind of an awkward situation when you do net that fish. It does make it easier if you have another person in the boat, but when it's just you riding solo, fishing solo, it does make it a challenge. I'd say it's not possible, but just the net mate was something that gave you that extra set of hands if you're out there fishing by yourself.
Well, and I think that rhetoric speaks across the board on a lot of your products. That, you know, fishing solo, it looks like a lot of these are like a helping hands type situation for your boat, right? You can put your tools in the spot. The net has a spot where it can go when you're working. When you need both of your hands, the boat can be a hand in itself. So that's kind of cool for the people that don't always is lucky to have a fishing partner like I do. You know, I can hold the net. I can help like make sure all the stuff is good so she can take her fish off.
Well, the most important question is who catches more. Yeah. Oh, okay. No debate. No,
that's okay.
I don't know. He does more of navigating the boat, so I like to say that like he's a little bit.
It's a team effort.
But yeah.
Yeah, you put her on the fish and she executes and catches the fish.
Yeah, see,
there you go. It's a 2-man team.
I just say she should catch more fish. She has the front of the boat.
Ah, okay.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's.
So here's another thing that actually came across in one of our conversations over the weekend. You know, we were talking with the Tyrees, and Kyle actually does a little bit of planer board fishing, and so he was talking about having a storage thing on his boat for his planer boards, and so this is something that you know maybe Kyle would be interested in. But another thing, just to keep that little stuff from just floating around your boat, it can have a spot in your boat. You can grab it when you need it, and it's one of those things that you might not always think about, but when you have something like that, then you're always going to use it.
Yeah, and I think we're all guilty of it when we're out on the water. And I know it might be more common in the muskie world, but you're constantly changing baits. And it's just so easy to take that bait off and just throw it where your feet are, right? And then grab the next bait because you know you're just going to be constantly swapping baits. And it's just by the end of it, if you're out there 5, 6, 8 hours, you look at it, you have a huge rat's nest just full of baits. And it doesn't take long to build that pile because you could start out the day casting and maybe throughout the day you're going to trolling, and it just, at the end of the day, your boat's just a disaster. So trying to make it a little bit more easier to find your spot of where you want to store things versus trying to open up compartments and then you're grabbing out maybe another Plano box or another box, whatever that case may be. I know I constantly get yelled at my wife because I still do it here and there, and I need to be better now that we have almost a 2.5-year-old because she gets in that boat and she just wants to grab everything that she shouldn't. But I'm hoping she gets in the sport. I really seems like she's at the age she's at. She's really taking an interest, and it's really shocking how much she's picking up because just from her watching, and we never showed her like in terms of giving her a pull and this is how you cast, but she grabbed the pole and she was attempting to cast. It wasn't the greatest look or greatest form, but she wanted to put the lure in the water, and she's saying, "Daddy, look, fish."
That's awesome.
So at that point, we had to buy her a little pink floating pole.
Yeah.
So she's attempting.
But that's a really great point because, whether it's kids, whether it's dogs, I feel like everybody is taking people out on the boat. And maybe that is just a bunch of friends in your boat, and so the more that you have a spot for all of your things is the less that you're going to be fiddling around or having hooks all over or whatever. And so that's one of those things that really aids in a good day is when you're not losing things or getting caught up or anything. So, also, I always hate when you have to come home and clean everything up. So if you can do that as you go along the way, that's always great.
Yeah. I mean, most of the stuff we make, like I said, it goes back to organization, storage. I would call it out of all the fishing tackle, it's not the most sexiest, right? People always want to get the new rod and reel, the new lure, that new color, whatever people are talking about, whatever's being posted on social media, that's what people are after. But at the end of the day, when people are investing, you look at the stuff, the money you're spending. I'm not sure about the panfish, the crappie world, but I'm sure it still adds up. But you look at a muskie pole, you can easily drop $300-500 on a pole. Then you add that on top of the reel, it might be another $300-400 for the reel. And the baits people are paying on average $30-50 a bait. So people have thousands of dollars invested in just tackle equipment. So
yeah, that's crazy just to go out and catch a fish.
Yeah, for sure. But it's a hobby. There could be other hobbies that I tell my wife that you probably wouldn't be wanting me to be getting into. So I tell her fishing is just be happy I'm fishing. So
this is one that the kids can come and do.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. So we've had a big focus on like the products and the tools and having everything at hand, and then the muskies kind of themselves. So we talked a little bit about like the unhooking them, being safer on them, but I think that there's a few other things like water temperatures and stuff. We kind of started there. So I mean, as far as fishing for muskies this time of year, do you have tips for that?
I'm probably not the best one to ask.
Yeah.
Because I just like to get out and have a good time, really. But in terms of this time of the year, again, it's the water temps are way too high. And when they're this high and people see you fishing, it's a very political sport, to be honest. You get shunned very quickly if people see you're out in this water temp, just because it's the fish are very delicate. So I'm going to wait probably that's sometime in August before I'm getting out. And then hopefully the water temps get down to, I don't know, mid to lower 70s and we get out of these 80-degree temps. So right now when I do get out, it's walleye fishing, it's bass fishing, just anytime we can get out and just cast, and whatever hits. So it's always fun. Even if you don't catch anything, it's just great being outside.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also not a muskie expert, very far from that. But I've also heard, under 80 degrees is kind of that target. So when you're saying mid 70s, low 70s, that's definitely getting better. But, it's always interesting because there's those people that, maybe they have only 1 weekend of the year and that's when they can fish. And so some people still do, right? And so it is interesting. Like you said, it can be super political. And, I think one of the best things this time of the year is to remember to be a good sportsman, because it's always me that's getting mad at all the boaters and the jet skis. And I'm like, get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to that, because we live in southeastern Waukesha, so we're in between kind of Milwaukee and Madison, and where we live and where we fish, it goes to your point too. Our schedules are so busy. So anytime we get a chance to fish, we're gonna go out. We don't have the luxury to pick and choose when we go, because I'm a dad. I have a full-time job, and then the Reck-n-Rack thing. It's not a full-time job, but it's pretty busy. So it keeps us busy. So we try and find time when we can to still have a life. You gotta have your sanity. You can't always go. You gotta have that play sometimes, not always work. And so when we do get out, we go when we can. And the waters we fish around here, they get a lot of pressure because we're not too far from that Illinois border. And I would take the fishing pressure over the recreational, but it's a challenge getting out on those waters nowadays with those wakeboarders, and all you're sitting there doing is rocking around. So, I mean, some of those ways that those things produce is pretty aggressive. And I know that's a very political topic too, is right now. It seems like that's picking up in steam of, should they be out there? Shouldn't they be out there? Do we restrict it? And I don't have the answer, but I just know to me, they're a nuisance.
There is no doubt about that. And shout out to fishing the early mornings before it's hot and before the boaters get out there, but that I have to wake up early.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've been trying to get up. I get up around 4:35 during the week. I'll do some Reck-n-Rack in the morning, and then I'll try and get a workout in, and then from there I go work the full-time job, and then we come back, maybe work a little more, and then like today, it's gorgeous outside. I think it was like mid 70s, and we took the wife and the daughter. We went for about a 10-mile bike ride. So,
nice.
And then that was right before this call, so it was a little sweaty, but not nervous. But it was the bike ride.
My gosh, actually, that's awesome. So I guess as far as I was going to say the bump boards, you have so much more than the bump boards. But I think, at least in my experience, this is what I think I see are people's favorites at the shows and expos. I should ask that as a question. Is that true? Is that one of the favorites?
Yeah, that is definitely our hot seller. We sell a lot of bump boards. So we actually offer different models. Actually, it sounds simple. It's a measuring board, but I bet you there's 10 to 15 different SKUs, because we'll have the musky board, and then you can have it in the right hand and the left hand. And when I say right hand, that's how you're going to bump the fish. So if you're going to gill the fish with your right hand, then you're going to want a right-handed board. And then, so vice versa, if you gill the fish with your left hand, you're going to want a left-handed board. So just in the musky, we have, left, right, you got black and white. And then we can offer multi-species where, because it's a 60-inch board, it's folded in half. And if you're out there fishing for walleyes, or if you catch a smaller fish, you don't want to have to unfold the board. So we have markings on the back side that go 0 to 30. So then you got that in right or left, and then you have that in black or white. So what is, 6 or 8 SKUs right there. And then we offer in walleye version, we offer it in panfish and bass version. So we offer the different sizes based on what you're fishing. Because if you are strictly a pan fisherman, you don't want a 60-inch board. I mean, that's just extra weight. That's extra mass that you have to carry around and try and find somewhere to store.
I want a 60 board.
Looking at the look on your face, and I was going to say, apparently Josh catches crappie's that big.
Here's the deal, though. Last October and this spring, both of us you were 25, but I was in 24. We both caught our first muskie. Mine was on a 2-inch paddle tail. Yours was on an original floater. We were walleye fishing, but still, like, both surprise fish. Luckily, both of them were in the mid 30 range, so we could fit it in the walleye net. But yeah, that would have been nice. Like, we had our bump board and it goes. No,
it went off the end.
Yeah, it is 30 inches. So then we just had to
and a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, I want a 60-inch board. Why wouldn't you? You have the multi-species board. That's perfect.
So that's
I do understand. I mean, we have a lot of friends that are very hardcore pan fishermen, and they take their kayak. Like, obviously, I wouldn't want a 60-inch board in a kayak unless I was like Nicole King fishing muskie all the time. But I think she has her own. I don't know what she does, but and there's instances. All those things have their place. Me personally.
I thought you were just gonna line up all.
How am I gonna measure a sturgeon on a panfish board?
Well, that's where you stretch the truth in your story, right? Oh, it was a 70-inch fish. Really.
Yeah,
it was like 40 because you didn't have the other 30.
Well, what was it? We were with Brian Claremont like 4 years ago. And you caught a legit 70-inch fish, and we had to mark.
A sturgeon.
We had to measure it with a rope, and then measure the rope when we got back.
That's awesome.
I had to bear hug it and then roll it into the boat.
That's too much.
It would have still hung off. It's a 60-inch board.
Oh my gosh. Apparently this is why this is people's favorite product at shows and expos too, because they must have these conversations there also.
Could be.
Well, you might see next year a new product. We might make an 80-inch board.
Oh, the sturgeon rack.
We'll call it the Emily board.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I would be so proud.
Oh, that'd be
Oh
funny.
my gosh, that would be a pain to carry around.
Have to have two folds in it.
Okay, anyways. So typically Josh will take the website and paste it into the comment section, because as we're talking about all this, how could people not be excited? And I do also have to ask, right on the front of your website, is this a live scope poll?
Oh, I can pull it back up.
Sorry.
Yep.
No,
I just think it's a hot topic right now too, so I'm interested.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of politics in fishing that I found out getting into this. So it's, it's especially in the muskie world. It's a small world, so word travels. People know people, and I'm sure that's any industry you get into. But I mean, even outside of that, it's I won't get into the politics, but it's either for live scope or not. But it seems like it's a very hot technology out on the market. I didn't adapt to it myself until about last year. I got my first unit, my first system, and I didn't envision myself even making a product for the live scope. But we got enough. This goes back to listening to the customer, but we had enough requests where people are like, "Hey, can you do this? Have you thought about this?" And over time, we just got enough requests to do it. And I'm like, all right, we should probably do something. And so we use their feedback on what they were currently using, what they liked, what they didn't like, and we tried meshing all the best features we could into this poll, adding a lot of functionality, a lot of flexibility. And making it easy to use so you can still deploy in seconds. Mm-hmm. But been running it the last several seasons, and it's been great so far.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. I know that's something that there's a lot of people out there looking for, and have different opinions on how they should work and everything. So it's always fun to see those at the expos too, to be honest, and to be able to fiddle around with them. But you have quite a few pictures and information here. So if people are shopping, that should be a good place to look.
Yeah, it's definitely been a great tool just to look out in front of the boat, or even to the side. You can see the structure, how far out. Some lakes we fish have quite the drop off. So to know how far I'm away from that drop off that I should be casting into, where the weed line is. You don't get that from the side imaging or the down imaging. And that's how we've been using it. And even to the point of when we're fishing too, you'll be casting into thick weeds when we're muskie fishing. And last year I had a situation where I kept with a figure 8 and I was about to pull it, but then I thought I saw something jump up on the screen. I stuck with the figure 8 for a few extra turns, and the thing shot up. So that was pretty cool to see, where if I didn't have that tool, probably would have pulled that figure 8, a few turns earlier.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
That is actually crazy. That's so fun. So the poll doesn't come with the live scope, but that is a great option. I know we love having ours when we fish too. I always seem to snipe a walleye.
Yeah, that's true. You have been getting good at that.
You guys use a Garmin, or are you using the new Humminbird?
No, we got the Garmin. We have the 34 transducer and 93 head unit. It's really cool. I do like it. It's a good tool, but I always find myself going back to what I know. Reading the map, reading the water temperature, going back, keeping my skills strong on just where I know fish should be at a certain time of year. And it's, it does help. Like I'm saying that like that's a skill that everybody should have. I think that's a skill that someone like me, that I do it for a job. Like my job is a fisheries and a water quality professional. So like every week I'm checking water temps at work, and I'm always out in the water, and then I go fishing all weekend. And so like, it's just one of those things. But I just go back to relying on that kind of knowledge that I know, and the forward-facing sonar is really there just so I can get a better reinforce that knowledge that I have. And I think it's also good to note that like we use our camera a lot. Like we use our aqua view almost as much as we use our forward-facing sonar, just because the forward-facing sonar is great. It gives you a really good almost watercolor picture of what's underneath, but sometimes you need to see exactly what the structure is or like what the fish is, because there's
or if
no
it's a rock bass or a crappie.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's no sense in Emily trying to snipe walleyes out of a school of suckers, right? That's not going to help anybody. But
No.
all these tools have their place. Emily and I are fortunate enough to both really love this hobby, so we funnel a lot of our extra funds into the hobby. But I really don't think it's necessary. It's a fun tool. I really do enjoy using it. I learn a lot from it. I just, I go back to part of it. Emily keeps it up in the front with her, so I'm just sitting in the back of the boat.
It sits in the middle of the boat.
But no, I think it's a good tool if people that can't afford one, if you have a buddy or
people
whatever,
that won't use it enough to justify it.
Yeah, just go. It's worth finding someone and trying it out just to see, just to experience it. But I really don't think it's really upped our fishing that much. Like you said, you may or may not have caught that muskie off of that weed. You made a couple extra turns because you saw it on the forward-facing sonar, but you could have just as easily caught that fish had it just hit earlier, right?
And if it wouldn't have.
No, but I'm just saying, like, in that instance, it wouldn't have. But, like, on another day, or maybe you would have been a little bit closer. It's just, I think it's a cool technology. That's, I guess, what I'm saying.
Yeah, we use it as a tool. We don't use it as, I know you'll see some people out there, they just stare at the screen, but even though if you see the fish, you still have to get them engaged. You still have to get them to trigger type of thing. But, there's a lot of fish you're missing that are covered in the weeds too. So you're not going to see that on the technology. That's where I use it for where is the weed line? Yeah. Yep. Where is the drop type of thing? And where is the water temp? So there's a lot that goes into it. Even if you find a bait ball, you're looking for that too, because the predators are somewhere. They're going to be around there.
Well, and that's a really good point. I think that's the other part of that I really enjoy is, Emily and I do a little bit of personal bait making ourselves. We like to experiment with colors. We catalog what colors work on what lakes, and the live scope has really helped us do that quickly, because you can kind of go and make a couple casts and you can watch the fish's reaction, whatever it is. Most of the time we can tell if it's like a bluegill crappie versus a walleye, right? They just swim different, but you can just like, okay, make a couple casts, they're not biting it, switch colors, make a couple casts, switch colors. And then you can find that color that's working. And then in subsequent trips, you can you have a palette to start off of. Instead of having 20 colors to go through, you only have 4, because those are the ones that hit the most on that particular body of water. And you'll get
sometimes it's random.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but you'll get some interest, but then it's a puzzle piece that's not so hard to find then. So that's kind of fun, just watching fish reactions, I guess.
Yeah, we're out last weekend. My dad and I were fishing and we're fishing for walleye. We caught a few keepers want to get a family fish fry going, but even on the scope, we saw some on there, but then you wouldn't see them, and we're still casting there because they're hugging that bottom so close that the live imaging wasn't picking it up.
Right.
So we're still casting out there, plugging away, and they're still hitting, even though you couldn't see them.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. So I love, as we were chatting, that image gallery that was going by, because to be honest, I was watching all of that and making a mental shopping list. But I imagine others were doing that as well. Because one of the other things is, I know it's not like close to Christmas or anything, but gifts, birthdays, anniversaries, whatever. If you have a fisherman in your life, this might be one of those tools that they don't have yet, even for the fisherman that has it all, right? Because some of these accessories are just unique. I guess that's why you're here. That's why you've created them with the fisherman in mind. And so some really cool things to be able to look through. And like we were mentioning before, Josh did put that link into that comment section. So if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you're going to be able to just click on that. And if you are not, then just go and search Google, because then it'll pop up. But I know that people like to bump into you guys also. Do you have events coming up or that you're planning on going to?
None for this year. So we always stick true to the Wisconsin Muskie Expo in Wausau, because that was our first show. It's actually a really fun show. We enjoy that. So we bring up our family because this is a family business. It's not just me, it's my wife. My daughter even gets involved. Then we have my dad, we have my brother, my brother-in-law, we have my sister-in-law. So, and even to the in-law for my father-in-law, my mother-in-law. So we get quite the help, as the help is needed, because there's no shortage of work. But for the show, we bring up my extended family, and then we just make a little vacation out of it, because the family just enjoys setting up, getting to talk to people, getting exposure to the marketplace. And it's really exciting to see people take interest in what you have to build. Because there's a need for it. There's a niche for it. So it's just, and it's a great venue too. If you've ever been to it, it's Holiday Inn, and it's connected to the convention center. So you can walk in and out from the hotel to the expo center if you stay on site. So, but understood, it's up in Wausau, and it's, I would say, kind of in the middle of nowhere, but you'd be surprised the crowd that it brings. But we will be doing that. That's in March, I believe. I think it's like around the middle of March. Then I've been toying around with the idea of the Wisconsin Fishing Expo, the one in Madison that you guys are attending. Yeah. So I almost did it last year, but we just had quite the schedule is pretty booked, so we didn't do it. But really thinking we'll do it next year. And then there's another one in Chicago we might do as well. I don't remember the name of that one off the top of my head. And then
I was going to say, everyone just calls it the Schomburg Show.
Yeah, it's the Chicagoland Fishing and Sports Show in Schaumburg, but everybody just says Schomburg Show.
The Schomburg Show.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we're invited to St. Croix, the CAD, the Customer Appreciation Day, because again, we had fun doing that as well. So it may not sound like a huge lineup for us, but again, we're just a family-owned company, and we still have full-time jobs, but it's fun to get out there. The shows are fun, even though they're a lot of work, because you're making the product, you're packing it up, and then you have to lug it around, trailer it. Yeah. And then when you do get to your end destination, you have to unload, you have to set it up, and then the fun part starts. And then before you know it, the show's over and you're packing up again, you're back on the road.
Yep.
But hopefully you sold everything that you brought, so it's less to carry.
Yeah, less to carry.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Well, we look forward to bumping into you again, wherever that is. And I know that people at home are looking forward to that as well. And I guess I should ask before we wrap things up, was there anything that we missed?
I don't think so. I feel like we covered a lot within the hour here. So, but we're always available. We can be reached on our website. We have our email at reck-n-rack@gmail.com. You can message us on our website as well. And we try and respond as quickly as possible. We actually have our phone number listed on there too. If you want to reach out, you have questions. We want to make sure that any questions you have, we can address them, because some of the stuff is quite the investment, but we understand that you invest a lot in your equipment. You want to make sure it's protected as well. So we want to make sure that you feel confident in the decision you make.
Well, that is so awesome. And I guess with that, thank you so much for being here to talk about all of this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you for the invite.
Yeah. We look forward to bumping into you at the next expo or whatever. And I guess hopefully using some of your products on the water. But to people at home, thank you for being here to chat about all of this as well, because that's always a big part of the fun. And hope to see everyone on next week's edition of The Night Bite.
Night,